This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralized, strengthened teeth, all natural ingredients. essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below. Check out TrueLeafMarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Hey, and good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on the beautiful blue planet. I'm on the other side over here in Taiwan. We were just on the beach last week. Thunderstorms rolling in, rainy season. I know of you in the US, 10 p.m. to midnight. Thank you for joining us this evening. Opportunities or dangers or risks moving through the rest of 2026. Well, we see the economy is kind of spinning on its heels here. Everything, all hopes for the entire planet are now pinned on this IPO coming with SpaceX tomorrow, followed in a few months by the other AI companies tagging along the coattails. We'll see what this really does for the stock market thing. Is it a restart or is it just a milking of wealth? Because I want to point out one thing to you here. Any of you that have 401ks, your money is in some sort of management. It's under management in a 401k. And you know what structure you have for management, but somebody's holding your money in an investment fund to guarantee you a certain amount of refund or, interest on that holdings until you decide to withdraw it. Now, unbeknownst to me, a lot of these funds are required to hold the top 100 stocks. All right, so it's an automatic no-brainer. They're pooled, these top 100 stocks in the S&P, NASDAQ, whatever. You can choose the different indices, S&P 500, whatever. They pull the top 50 or 100 stocks, throw them in a basket, and then your investment money goes in there as just like an ETF for a better term. It's a basket of the top 100 stocks. Well, SpaceX goes right to the top, so inadvertently they're pulling in everybody's 401k retirement fund into this IPO. That's something not a lot of people are talking about, is your money for your retirement is being fed into this IPO, whether you want to or not, because you know it's going to crash after it does its initial bump. I was looking at so many forecasts. They're talking about this thing at 50% of its valuation within 12 months after this skyrocket here for a minute. The only thing that might make it really pump and continue to stay higher is if they do put the data centers above our heads. And I know Ransom's already been pinging on this here. The data centers will be above our heads. They will not be on the ground anymore. You can already see humans are complaining about the use of water for cooling, the use of electricity. So what they're trying to do now with Starlink, so able to launch just gargantuan amounts of small satellites, they're going to do the same thing. And each one of these satellites is going to be a small mini AI data center, and then they're going to link. So I'm just curious how they're going to link. Obviously, they're going to have some connection between them. Is it going to be like Geostorm where they're physically connected, or is it actually going to be a signal between them? This will help with the cooling. They won't need all the water. They'll have permanent electricity because the solar panel in space gets continuous light, so it should have enough. It's going to look like some super giant umbrella with a little box under it. So that's the only possible way this company can keep its valuation up, is if the entirety of the data center build-outs move above our heads. And then this truly is the Skylink network that was talked about in the Terminator movie. Skynet. That's what it'll be. So when you look at it, just see how these things are going to move. Now, a lot of people are worried that a lot of money is going to come out of the stock market from different companies and all swoop over into this SpaceX offer. Crypto's down, gold's down, some indices across the markets are down, as if everybody's pulling their money out in the last few days to push it into the SpaceX IPO. And we'll see how this goes tomorrow. This is the biggest news headline, along with what's going on in Belfast. We can't really delve too deep into it, but the giant's been awoken. I think that was the straw that literally broke the camel's back. I don't think Humpty Dumpty ever getting fixed with super glue. The genie ain't going back in the bottle, and this thing is not going to resolve itself until it resolves itself. You can push people so far, and then they snap. I think the snaps occurred, and nobody's ever going to walk it back now. This is just it's interesting how all these new chapters of history are occurring at the same time, right on cue, with the possible disruption of the economy. We got the disruption of what was, an unstable factor and realm of Europe anyway, but now it is completely off the hook. So is this destabilization on purpose as well? And then we have perfect Iran. Trump has stated 55 times that we defeated Iran. That's almost like that saying Bitcoin's dead 4,700 times since the beginning of Bitcoin. What do Iran and Bitcoin have in common? Oh, they say they're over multiple dozens of times, hundreds of times. Anyway, Ransom Godwin joining me tonight right here. We got Fire and Ice on the channel. Notice the difference. I'm on a beachy kind of thing.
Right, it's burning
In
up.
my mind.
I think you got a mic setting off or something there. Everybody
Oh no, that is terrible. Please don't tell me that.
No, they said something about your volume. I don't know if my volume's good or not.
Oh,
either.
it is. I can't believe that. Damn it. That what do you call it? Microsoft set came in, reset and set me again. Let me see if I can get the USB device back up here. Why is it not even on there? All right, how's this sound now? Better?
Whoa, yeah, it's on there.
All right, well, Microsoft Windows Update on my computer, disengage that mic and put it back to default setting of just grabbing the camera mic. So let's bring it back. Ransom joining us tonight. Thanks so much. That was a decent intro. I wish I could scrape that back. See, I'll have to use AI to restructure the audio and take the echoey out of it and bring that
I didn't think it was that
mic
bad.
back into what mine sounds like. I'll just do a copy paste to make them equivalize.
Equivalize. Yeah.
Equivalize. That is a word, not equalize, but equivalize.
Yeah, so I'm predicting tonight we're going to be bombing the living tar out of Iran because,
You think
so? This was supposed to be the night, the deadline, blah, blah, blah. And then, he's tweeting out that he canceled it again because they definitely got a deal. They're going to be meeting in Europe. And then Iran, starts tweeting out from different people there. We haven't talked to nobody. There's no deal. Israel says there's no deal. We're planning on bombing. It's going forward, whether anyone likes it or not. And then with the IPO thing, I was wanting to dump a couple hundred in it. I think it's like 135 a share or something like that to start out with.
190 now. Jumped that far. You missed the boat already. If you didn't get in onto the early, they've repriced it to 190 from 135. Because I noticed on some of the decentralized protocols, I forget exactly who. I know Robinhood was offering like digitized versions of that, tokenized versions of the stocks. Now, if you were able to get in on those tokenized offerings from other platforms, you're able to grab that not $60 before it even launches. Now, again, I think that was Vanguard or one of the other ones that's helping host this that repriced it to 190. I read that on Yahoo Finance this morning.
Well, it's kind of weird.
Change back again. That was like 3 hours ago. Yahoo Finance is putting that out on the repricing already.
We like the investors can literally decide that Musk is going to be the first trillionaire there with this. I know that sounds funny because people are trying to make money off of the thing, but I don't think the IPO is a scam. Nothing so far that Musk has done has been outside of the projection and dream that he's publicly stated since he first started getting going. So I really don't think it is a scam. However, I do think there will be an inevitable bust on the the price of the
eventually,
shares.
but the first days, this thing's probably going to skyrocket, right?
I was thinking for the first couple months. I think this will be like a Bitcoin situation for people. If they bought in early, it's going to get to quadruple or more, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's gonna drop for one reason or another. However, like other things, you may want to stay in for the long haul. That may be like investing in Google when it first started, or investing in Walmart in the 1980s, or again, investing in Bitcoin when it was $13 a coin.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let me run through a couple headlines with you. Okay, right here, where'd that one just go to?
Oh, and silver too, right now.
Oh, and silver, yeah. Okay. So some companies are calling 190, some are talking 135. It just depends where. Okay, SpaceX gets its first price target. All right, so this is where all the news is going to be headed to. All going to say there it is at 190 already.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So from
Already missed
135 to
it.
190 just in the first minutes of opening. So again, I'm not financial advice. I personally am not going to even get closely to touch this one. Here, Virgin Galactic pops because of the SpaceX IPO. So you can see how a lot of things are going to zoom up on this. Now, even notice all the other futures are up too. And then if you go to Bitcoin, that's up too. Gold's up, Bitcoin up.
Right.
Everything's going to go up just because there's so much throwing of monies into this SpaceX here. And
Wait
anything
till
related to space stuff is going to go up. Like I said, Virgin Galactic popping off. Bezos is whatever he's got, the red blue rocket with the 7 blue ladies in it, whatever. I forget what you call that one. That's also going to probably crank off as well.
I don't know, man. It just seems like with his track record of companies so far.
Yeah, I don't. It'll definitely head up there for a minute, but I just other things going on that I don't know. It just seems there's so much focused in on this. Could be a home run, could be, but again, everything else is going to trail behind this thing going up. So the biggest of the bigs have been saying that we're at the bottom of the crypto market now, like all of them. So is the SpaceX IPO tagged into all this extra money and liquidity and everything that's going to pull the whole market up? Because as this thing goes up, everything's going to rise with it for months, it looks like. So is this the starting point of a new thing where huge amount of endless money printing will come in because we got this war that's an endless war now that keeps dragging money out of us. We got all these people out of work that are going to need stimulus checks and basic income again. And it just seems like we're right at that COVID era where people are understanding that we don't have enough money around the place to provide for everybody's needs. So we're going to have to turn the money printers back on again. And it seems like this is the perfect time to do it. Like everything's kind of aligning. If you're looking at planets aligning in the skies, this seems to be an economic planet lining sort of month or two that's ahead of us. It just seems that way because all things are meant to push this. If truly they're going to now put all the data centers above our heads in orbit, this is the guy that's going to do it. And all that trillions that was going into the ground-based, terrestrial ones, everybody's fighting now. Don't take our water, don't take our land, don't take our farmland. That's it. I love those. Go back. Can you go back to the graphics you were showing? I was just trying to ramble there where you were showing that graphic of the burning something or other.
That is a what it says is the.
I'm just saying, like, this is going to work if the data centers are going to be above our heads, but then that will be outside of human control, where even if you have a problem with it, there's no way to destroy it. It will be outside of literal human intervention at that point.
Yeah, I guess
But is that worth $1 trillion valuation and you to pump up a couple $100,000 by throwing in a few $100 inside your IPO there?
Oh yeah, and that's kind of where I was going to go with this thing here in Argentina.
Argentina moves to legalize all non-human corporations run by AI.
So now when we're talking about investing, now you're going to have to start thinking about, do you invest in the future of human ran companies or AI ran companies? And then who runs the AI, right? All of this is happening down in Argentina, by the way, where the guy from Palantir just moved and took his family to go hide. He's also in negotiations buying up water rights. And then if you remember, the Bushes notoriously bought up all the water rights to Argentina a long time ago, basically all the groundwater rights to tap the aquifers there. And right here where I live, it's the data centers are not seemingly going to happen. And the reason I say that is because A, people don't like it. B, people are now starting to make movements that threaten these kind of buildings and the entities that would dwell in them. I'll just put it that way. And there's just zero water. Right now, the Rio Grande is bone dry. There's nothing. You can walk around out there and go look for buried treasure right in the sand. There's no water at all. Going down towards El Paso or Las Cruces, right in the area where they want to place these giant data centers around in my neck of the woods. But keep in mind that the data centers are not the only major investment in the Southwest here. There's also massive detention centers being built. And when I say massive, I mean, like back in the days of the rumors of Homeland Security and their FEMA camps type arrangements. So, like 400,000 people in big tents and big facilities stretching all over the city area of El Paso, Las Cruces, which, by the way, might be America's first megalopolis, which would be like 100 miles straight of urban development, stores, retail, factories, etc., all in a row down the interstate. That would be I-25. And this is the same corridor in which everyone farms in New Mexico because of the Rio Grande. So right now there's a giant fight over a bone dry river and who's going to have the water rights. Then at the same time, you're watching in real time, is kind of why I was showing this, is the old world is burning down to the ground. Around you right here. If I could get back to that. Yeah, here it is. This is the entire Medline warehouse in Tracy is on fire with embers spreading. So it's just like last week when I was saying, what's up with all these explosions? It's the prices are exploding. The wars are exploding. Literally the infrastructure, which, by the way, when we start bombing tonight, which I predict that we're going to really start heavily bombing Iran
you really
tonight.
Still think that, huh? Shit.
Oh yeah, because they're not making a deal. It puts people's ego, at risk to embarrass them. No settlements are going to be made about who gets to go through the Strait of Hormuz or not. So it's going to continue. But not only that, I might be wrong. We might wait a week again. Like I said, it's on again, it's off again, it's on again, it's off again, like 50 times now. However, when we do start bombing, this is gloves off. We're not going to be going for drone sites, missile sites, and things like that. We're going to start bombing infrastructure, bridges, water filtration stuff, just like a repeat of 2003. And really the decade before that, when Clinton was in charge. People forget that in the in-between of the first Gulf War and the war on terror that came later, about a decade or more later, we were steadily bombing Iraq, preparing for our invasion. So this is even, before it was public about the PNAC, Project for a New American Century, probably about 1999. Even prior to that being public knowledge, we were bombing and softening the entire area. So that's exactly what I see them doing in Iran right now. They have to topple it. It's going to be a hard thing to topple because it's just going to break into like 100 different little religious, factions. But that's exactly kind of the MO of Western powers, is to first destabilize and then allow the different factions to start fighting each other. We might even arm one or another. You remember whenever we were trying to pull the Kurds in, and I was like, don't do it. We've burned you every time. For the first time in history, they decided not to go with the United States and take our weapons and go down there and fight our war for us. So that put us in a spot, because everybody from Israel to the United States was assuming that we could fractionalize Iran a lot faster than we have. The problem is there's two major cultures in Iran that they I think misestimated, that are going to stick together. There's the classical Persian population of Iran that's like Islamic mullahs, and then now there's the influx of lots of different ethnic groups that are Muslim also, that have moved into Iran. So there might be a civil war clash between those two groups, but I think all we're going to see is more Summer of Love. And if you've noticed, it seems like the establishment power is waning over people. You got the O.J. Simpson trial. I'll just put it that way. So so we're not hitting the headlines for that. But there's a trial that just happened. Somebody got found guilty. They're going to go to prison. Of course, they're going to appeal it, but they're going to stretch this into the Summer of Love. It's already started. It was already predicted. We talked about it when it was still cold outside. That they were going to pump out something this summer for that. And that just all, aligns with the hike and the prices for everything. And, it really seems to me that it's not even that far-fetched, that this is just a group of individuals, like a Bilderberg group, that said, how do we drive prices even higher in 2026 and 2027? How do we gain even more profits? Well, we could do a war, a couple of, scare tactics about stuff that they would have to buy products for. They're warning us everywhere in New Mexico now. So I don't know what kind of fear is going out in the other states. I'm sure they have their own taste and flavor of it going on there. Here in New Mexico, they're saying, oh, you got to be careful. The first plague person died. We got the Hana virus. There's the West Nile virus. I'm surprised they haven't pulled out the Zika virus again. But then you got malaria coming back, dengue fever coming back. The screw worms now entered New Mexico and is infecting pets and livestock. We have long COVID problems and a resurgence in influenza, and then they're going to tack on new strains of Hana virus. So they have every sector of what someone might be afraid of the most, and they have it like cataloged and commercialized for literally what it amounts to commercial fear propaganda for each person. So you're afraid of the war, you're afraid of going broke, you're afraid of diseases, you're afraid of immigrants, you're afraid of them coming to get you because you are an immigrant. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a channel and 5 minutes dedicated of propaganda for you on every channel.
Well, if I was Iran, I would smoke every single oil pipeline that could possibly deliver oil to the West. Like that Yamal pipeline, I would imagine that would be the first thing that gets wrecked as we go into the big show here, if it occurs. Because that's what I would do. I would smoke every possible exit route of oil, and I would try to send everything at the same time to destroy every port, loading facility, chemical plant, and anything that wasn't in around, because it's going to be down to the existential threat of complete dissolving of that nation if this were to occur. If they go after Carg Island, which they already have trying to soften it a little bit. I just, be in their shoes for a second. Would you allow that to happen, or would you take everything else out? You would take everything else out. Of course you would. So if that were to happen, that would be a terrible thing. Sassafras throwing us here, 10 pounds of potatoes went up $3 this week from 5 to 8. There's no inflation. No, of course not. It was only at 4.2, percent. They just admitted that it's 4.2 now, not 2 point something. So, and to balance that out too, put that whole subset of what Ransom was talking about for all the genres of people over there as A. But on the backside here, all those people that are pushing all the puzzle pieces around, if you believe there's such a thing, I'm just saying allegedly, there might be, maybe. A lot of research to show there is, a lot of research to show there isn't, that it's just random happenstance. But that money-making edge of things is going to continue. So you can't give total desperation totally to the planet for too long, because people will just drop out and give up. Like they were testing that quite, let's say, diligently during COVID to see what the reactions were with professional people, what the reactions were with, tradespeople, students, those that were going to retire. They pushed an entire, genre of people into early retirement to kind of open up some slots for the younger kids, whatever. But the money is still going to be there. And with this, I do believe that with this summer of love, there's going to be this back current of massive economic gains during this time for a select few if you're in the right assets. Not financial advice, but I can't see everything going to zero with all this crazy fear and everything around and all these events you're talking about and food prices going up and everything without somebody in the back making a tremendous amount of money off of this. And this is the time that all these fortunes are made, is when there's the most chaos. Like, go back through history. The more chaos there is, the more possibility for making money there is. Because that chaos causes the volatility of the up and down spikes. Like, Trump just was that yesterday or day before said, oh, we got this big ass deal, war's off and everything. That's market manipulation, because you saw how quickly the stock market went up 3-4% just on that one couple tweets.
Exactly.
If you can't tell me that's not market manipulation, you have to give me a better definition of what is not, to show me what is not, because that is like in your face, up and center there. It can't be any more obvious now. And then the whole island, or the Shazan Island. I don't know if anybody has been watching the Shazan or Shazan, however, depending, off Albania there. That whole thing too, to try to control a strategic island coming into the Adriatic Sea from the Mediterranean under the guise of developing $1 billion top 1% vacation resort is kind of ridiculous too. I mean, I'd considered traveling and working and living as a digital nomad over there because I really like Croatia. Oh, yeah. And speaking of that, you were talking about Clinton, but during that time when the Balkanization was happening after Yugoslavia had broken up and there was the fighting, same that we see now between different religious factions all the way through Kosovo and Bosnia, Herzegovina, Albania, that whole thing up there with Croatia breaking away, and they're just tremendous amounts of us being there, but us not being there. The whole thing of us overseeing supplying weapons, but we weren't there. Oh yeah, a few planes got shot down in reconnaissance going over the mass graves, but beyond that, uh, we weren't there, but we were there. Believe me, we were there. The breakup of some of the most prime real estate and roots and resources on the planet, as Michael Yon always likes to say. And those trade routes have been time immemorial. That Kazan Island is time immemorial as well. There's been no other, that has been held since Phoenician times to control, because it's 50 miles across. You can actually see across over to Italy. You can see literally ships with binoculars going across there. And with today's weaponry and technology, with radars beyond the binoculars, you could knock anything out going into the Adriatic Sea. Like the Venetians needed that as well. I mean, it was the most strategic point there. And there's nothing really on it except a bunch of bunkers, underground tunnels, 10 miles of tunnels, thousands of 3,000, 4,000 bunkers, and like a sliver of beach like this big. And they're like, oh, we walked barefoot up to the top of the hill. I'm calling bullshit right away. You guys would have been walking on overgrown trails. Nothing was maintained. There was no sand there anyway. It's rocky and corally. If you've ever been around like Croatia, it's almost like the Adriatic Sea was sculpted out of like a plasma discharge, like on planetary lightning size, where it's ripped out and you got the giant boulders right on the beach edge. And then as you go back further off the coast, the boulders uniform in size start to shrink and shrink all the way to Göbekli Tepe where it's sand. And you got to wonder if that was an ionic wind event after the dispersion and the creation of the Adriatic Sea, if that wind didn't somehow blow and fill in part of Göbekli Tepe, because it was so perfectly, like when you go off the coast and you start looking at the debris size, perfect symmetry, perfect sizing, of different strata, large boulders, medium boulders, small, but all in just layers as you go off the coast for hundreds of miles. And they're walking up there barefoot on these kind of like rocky thing. Nah, come on, it ridiculous can't be. But that brings us all the way back over there into the Balkans. When you're looking at these different countries, and what's that? New Macedonia broke away, which was formerly part of Greece. I mean, I've been wanting to go to Bosnia anyway to go check out the pyramid. It's on my list for next year. Anybody wants to join? I'm trying to get together a Bosnian pyramid trip. Go check things out there.
You can find aliens in there.
Yeah, and go down into Dubrovnik down there, and we'll hit a few sites and some larger megalithic structures along. And in Albania, there's a couple, and Serbia right downtown also, there's a bunch down there too, star forts and megaliths. That whole area is super, super rich in history. Way, way past, so I was going somewhere with my point, but keep going, Ransom. I ramble sometimes.
Yeah, I do too, man.
I know, I caught you again, dude.
So somebody said, they were showing it with water down by El Paso. See, so the way the Rio Grande works is we get a lot of flood water, melt off water from the Rocky Mountains. That's when it's really strolling. However, sometimes it dries up, like here. It's dried up around Albuquerque. This is where most of the farming and stuff is, and this runs parallel to I-25 down to El Paso. Now, when you get down there, there's like a little trickle. Now, however, in Texas, they have storms. We have flash floods. So temporarily, you might see water in the river, but as a norm, it's going to be dry. So this is upriver from where you guys were talking about there in the chat. So the water's running out unless we get a really good monsoonal flow, which I think we might. And I think that's what these people are counting on as far as the data centers. And I think that they want, basically, we're going to get this weird combination of space data centers, ground data centers, and underwater data centers in the Arctic, Antarctic. And you got to question yourself, like, is this really just all for processing power? And I would agree that most of it is for computational power, because that's going to decide who runs the world in the near future, if not already. However, the countries of the world, including China and now Iran, have made comments that they're ready to start taking down satellites. Now, you remember a while back where we were kind of debating why it is that Elon Musk basically was putting up disposable satellites by, like he's putting up 100 satellites and then another one, they start to fall out of the sky, um, and they're easy to attack, right? And the reason for that is because they're so cheap to continually put up. And I have a feeling that they're planning on having little space wars over this idea of who gets to dominate space with computing power. And then I was looking at this too. You were talking about this, about the inflation. There's the excuse. These people that are in charge of things, and you alluded to it when you were talking about how the markets go up and down depending on what Trump's saying about what we're going to be doing. And he's, like 50 times he's gone, we got it, we don't got it, we got it, we don't got it. So each time someone can buy and sell, every time that happens, and make huge amounts of profits that no one even registers on. And then they're going to blame these war stoking, for inflation. But the truth is everything's running out. It already was in that. I believe that this is ongoing from pre-COVID. They already knew that the trends of less food, less packaging, less petroleum, and more restrictions on where and how and who can use the commerce system to trade. And then that's the same time that we started seeing these, invisible fleets out there. Basically like, nomad fleets with no transponders and no way to follow them because they're doing the trade anyway, backdoor, and trying to get out of this. And then you got, these billionaires, soon to be all trillionaires, fighting over basically who runs everything. And it looks like, in my opinion, they're just going to drop a big doo-doo on the northern hemisphere and restart this whole process in the southern hemisphere for decades to come. That's why you see every major tech company, oligarch, rich, billionaire, etc. They're all moving to locations in South America, and in I thought South Africa was going to be one, but that seems to have gone a different course there. But they still have New Zealand and Australia and so many of these private islands that people are buying up. And like you were talking about a minute ago, there are even people negotiating, to buy big portions of countries to set up future strategic points, and that's basically what the whole Trump administration for this part has been doing. That's why you keep hearing rumors about Greenland, and annexing Cuba, annexing Venezuela. It's just to keep everybody out there knowing that we are expanding, we're building new borders. But there's some kind of different system, and it doesn't seem to be the political system that's going to be running that. And it makes you wonder.
Wait, since you mentioned Africa, I have something about Africa already up here for you because that was one thing I have been looking at here. So let me try to share this screen with you here on the Africa one. Here we go. Okay, so all the maritime websites are picking this up. So if you follow maritime websites, you will find this one here. Africa's farmers brace for food crisis as Hormuz fertilizer flows collapse. So most maritime ones are picking this up because they're all about the fertilizer and stuff. Okay, Malawi. A victim of geography and economics. Wait a minute, they have coastline. Or sorry, that was thinking Mozambique there. Yeah, Malawi, Lesotho, these are like little landlocked places. Now, the whole thing about it is what you were talking about of Africa here. So the small scale farmers make up about 22 million people. And you're like, that's great. No, it's not. You know why? Because when the farmers were in control that were more larger scale farms, it actually worked, regardless of the color of their skin. So even some of their biggest farms down there are only 200 acres. Like, people laugh at that size. You have all that available farmland that you could be productive and put, under different management, but it's not happening. So let's share this here. It's actually a video I'm working on right now for the Adapt 2030 channel. And it's just interesting you were talking about Africa there, Ransom. I didn't know you were going to bring that up tonight, but I already have this one. All right, so right above there, and this is not just a South Africa specific problem. This is Zambia, this is Malawi, Mozambique, South Africa. Not so much over on the west, but it is to a point because they don't have that much agriculture. They're really dry on the western part of southern Africa there. I'm talking more the central south where these known bread baskets were. So in Zimbabwe, if you don't know, it started rumblings, and I had traveled during this time. I got this. When I was traveling in Zimbabwe, the exchange rate at that time when I was there was 10 Zimbabwe dollars for $1. It was just before the hyperinflation, and and then like the next week it'd go to 15. And we're like, well, this is really good. Oh wait, it's 25 this week. Oh shit, you can go get a bottle of wine and go have a steak and stuff. And like the restaurants didn't change their prices that fast. That's one thing I always remember about South Africa and Zimbabwe, which is how incredible you could eat like incredible meals for nothing because you're in that time of things rolling up, So you got all these white farmers over there, and I'm not even going to like try to be kind about it, but they were the ones who had the machinery. They had support from other nations across that they were trading with. They had trade deals. John Deere was a huge one down there. They had all these multinational companies. Just think small America, small Europe with all the farm machinery, and it worked. And they had millions of acres under cultivation using machines. Well, then Mugabe came in and he's like, oh, white people bad. You have all the farmland. We're going to take it back. Okay. And then they took it back. And they said, all right, people out there who don't know anything about farming, please leave the cities and come and be farmers. We'll give you land that we stole. And well, I just didn't steal. We retook it back from the colonizers. Okay, everybody like, yay. Here's the result. This was a milk facility that nobody knew how to run it. Nobody knew how to run it. Okay, people from the city, go be milk farmers. Yeah, here, we'll give you a milk facility, and you guys just came out of your office job. Go be a milk farmer. Go be a cattle rancher and a dairy farmer and come and produce milk for us. And they're like, we don't even know how to repair. What? Sorry? No. And it was just like this time and time and time and time again. And it started with the dairy sector first, and that was why they had run out of milk, and they needed powder milk, and they needed the World Health Organization and the World Food Programs and all this stuff to come in and help them because they ran out of milk and there was a protein crisis.
Well, that don't look like normal damage to that equipment there, man.
Yeah, well, it just got abandoned. It just got abandoned. And then, okay, so here's a good prime example of when it was fully functional, and then they turned it over by everybody who didn't know how. They knew how to do very, very tiny farming like me. I can do a half acre in my backyard, not this much with machines, and then it turned into dishes like this. So all this farmland got pulled back from, okay, that's give it back to the local people, cool, but nobody knew how to do it. And now they're complaining because nobody knows how to do any farming. They're starving. This is the bread basket of Africa, and they're asking for help from the World Food Program because it went from this to this because there's no training, no job skills training. Nobody knows how to do anything. And there's between a rock and a hard place here. These things are left vacant. No milling factories for corn. They don't know what they're doing. It's vacant. They're damaged, they're torched, stolen for scrap metal, and that's it. And this is what the whole story is about. So I'll leave it there.
I watched a whole little Chinese documentary that was on a similar exact subject. And the Chinese guy could just, he was just couldn't understand what was going on because they hired people that were educated and trained from the local area to do specific jobs. And like I said, not to be mean, but the Chinese guy was like, you guys will never get anything done. Like, people don't show up. They're fighting. The people that supposedly are educated and know what they're doing do not know what they're doing. So whoever educated them on how to do it, they don't know how to use tools right. So they destroy equipment when working on it to get it going or to damage it. And it was the exact same thing. And that's happened over and over again, unfortunately, in African countries and communities where a political agenda had removed the original builders of the civilization and then the other people couldn't figure it out. Let's leave it at that. But the
Well, let me add the
same
reason
thing's
I want.
happening in America. It's just slower.
Well, let me just throw one point on there. The possibility to grow food is there. They just need the training and the machinery and everything back, and they can probably, if they get like a Manhattan project of farm machinery moved into these countries, they could get their production back in like 1 year or maybe 2 maximum.
Well,
But
we
it would
have
be
to,
like an all hands on deck, bring all the machinery down, and we're bringing our own people in because you can't do it. So you're going to have to bend the knee a little bit and let people who know what they're doing come back in, regardless of their skin color.
right.
We're way past this, the kindergarten show, what's happening. Can't even run your country. And you're begging for food now from the World Food Program. Like ridiculous. They're really kind of unacceptable in this day and age, Sorry
Well,
to cut you off, man.
no, and then on top of that, like similar things are happening to the Western world in a different way, where subsequent generations are just not learning how to do things. They're not learning trades. They're not picking up the skills that maybe you or I just might have picked up on accident, just watching people growing up and stuff like that. They're just not. They're not getting those kind of experiences, especially children that live in the city. They're getting fed, non-useful information. I'll just put it that way. Non-useful information in a real world where you have to eat and survive. And we kind of set ourselves up for that in the Western world. But, to swing around, they're building this nanny state of basically, and people are, everybody's arguing about the purpose of the AIs. Here's another picture of the Rio Grande in between Albuquerque. And they're talking about you can go hiking in it. You can just go look around.
Is that normal? Like you're down there more. Like I saw David Nino Rodriguez, who I've done an interview with a couple times. He was down there saying too that he would go running in there when he was training.
Yes.
And super dry. That's not normal for him to see that. So I don't know, like how long you've been around. Like, do you think that's normal what you're seeing there? Or is that like completely just way, way, way over the range of dryness?
No, it's in cycles. No, it's been dry like that many times before. Like I said, it generally depends on how much snowpack that the Rocky Mountains get the year before. That feeds the Rio Grande, and then in years before we've had less snowpack, they had less river. But if we get a couple more winters like the last couple, you may be seeing this flowing out and flooding out. And I think that, like I said, there's an anticipation of a slight weather change in the Southwest. And that's why there's so much investment. It's really similar to what we were talking about in Northern Africa and to other places, that they realize that we're going through a shift and that weather patterns are necessarily going to change, which might mean for the Southwest, wetter times. We know we've had them before. They've had really nice wet times where populations thrived here, followed by amazingly long periods of dry weather that almost extincted the populations in the Southwest. So it is normal at the same time as, temporarily or in the short term, it's not normal. But this is where they're planning all the water to go. So it's not like you're going to invest billions of dollars into a place that's drying up totally, right? You're going to be expecting water to come, or they're just going to screw everyone and tap the aquifer until it's totally dry. Because we do have one of the world's biggest aquifers that meets the Rio Grande right about Las Cruces and El Paso, where you start getting to the Artesian aquifer and the Permian Basin aquifer. And that's already low. I mean, because they've been fracking it and doing other things with it for years. But that's why T. Boone Pickens and all of the others had the foresight, almost as if they knew, like we were talking about with the wars, you soften up an area, that soon water would be the new gold. And matter of fact, there were documentaries, books, all kinds of stuff in the 80s and 90s about the future, of gold being water.
Yeah, because that's a North American monsoon. And I did a bunch of research on this over the years. There's a pattern that's a 4,000-year cycle pattern. And what you're talking about, a consistently wet period, is when the last time it was consistently wet enough for major cultures to exist there on runoff water that was consistently, where the river was full 24/7, 365, or never went into a dry period where it dried to that point, was pre-Anasazi. And that was the last time that North American monsoon had pushed that much water. But I do see sort of a shift there where it might be getting wetter. but it's not going to be turned on like next week. It's going to multi-decades for this thing. So
Yeah.
North
And
American
then,
monsoon. Anybody out there want to do your own research on that? Check it out. It'll show you the flow maps coming off of the Baja Peninsula and how that. It's more the southern winds where they come now. They go over Northern California, and a lot of that stuff gets driven in Central California and Northern California. The North American monsoon, whatever pattern sets that up, the wind flow comes from below Baja and up into the Four Corners area, and that's the flow. So it dries out further north in Northern California, which would make sense how during the Ice Age there was that gap along the coast there. If there wasn't any precipitation coming down and it was desert-ish up there and now British Columbia and further up into the Aleutians, because of that flow was locked in place, we're just getting a mini version of it outside of an ice age where that flow is really, really far south. You're talking 1,000 miles further south or even more than it exists right now. And that would continually push that moisture there as long as that jet stream flow was locked in. But that's like a full change in the atmospheric flows. So everywhere on Earth would be different than it is now with dryness or wetness.
well, think about this, for example. In Oops, wrong button. In about 539 AD, you had the worst year ever. But over here in the Americas, it was wet. It was a wet period. So things were very good for the hunter gatherers that lived in the area here for a pretty good period of time. But then all of a sudden, the Southwest Indians started building grain silos, building buildings, building cliff dwellings, all of these other things. And that happened because the weather changed dramatically. So we know all this other stuff was going on in China and South America and Europe, the Justinian period and all of that stuff. But over here in the Americas, they were doing fine as hunter gatherers, as nomads. But something happened so severe that they started staying put, building cities, storing grain, storing corn, basically. And you could tell that there was very hard times happening around that time, all the way up into the point where you have people from other empires coming up here, maybe trying to either conquer or find new lands and new resources, because we have genetic evidence of, like at Chaco Canyon, where some of the Mesoamerican people were eaten by the locals there. And I don't know if it's very doubtful that they did it because they were hungry. So it was probably more like a see what happens when you come up here. You're not doing that. And they actually have a long history of rebellion, because when the Spanish came, they fought 4 rebellions against them and kicked them out, and hadn't been really defeated until the U.S. Army kind of settled things. So we've had a right here in the Southwest, there's just eras of bone dry death and depression, followed by, monsoonal flooding and lakes and animals and luscious time. So I think that these guys know that there's cycles that you can mark out and map exactly. And I have a feeling that that's what we're seeing when we're seeing the transfer of investment and the building of new infrastructure in all of these places. It's more located, I would say, below the 40th, not the 33rd, but the 40th. It's all below that.
And you want to have to ask the question, like, what was the onset period for what you just described? Before the populace was aware. I mean, if they're hunter-gatherers, obviously everybody in unison is going to be aware. But today we're so stratified in terms of society. Like the farmers would be aware first, and those that are in the weather and that sort of thing, precipitation, they would get it second, grain traders. But you got to wonder, like, when and how fast would that happen to affect enough people? What do you think that 10 years, 20 years, less, more?
I think it's been probably, well, judging by the era, let's say 539, they think that they started Chaco Canyon probably around 600 AD. So that's less 50, 60 years right there that they were so scared that they decided to start saving grain and changing their entire lifestyle.
That's about where we are on that same timeline, isn't it? From what we would first started talking about this climate debate about 40 years ago. Like, I'd had a really interesting conversation with some people through my years doing this, asking something on the similar line. Okay, all this money that's devoted to the research, is it really for what it is said it is for, or is it to catalog, track, and trace every single of these cycles across the planet in every location And then now that we have AI to crunch all that data to get specific feeds of specific areas, so they would know which areas would be unrest first because of food production troubles. And that was really what it was, under the guise of something else. Because you can't allot trillions of dollars into something for research, and then people are like, wow, you're doing so much research on the climate. Like, that's crazy. Why do you guys want to? Oh, but if you frame it in a different way, like we must, because it's an existential threat.
You mean like
really
having
trying to get out every, like there was whole sets of, there were like 10,000 peer-reviewed papers on just the North American monsoon on that 4,000-year cycle.
I was going to say
level of it, you know?
Right. Well, think about, what you're just saying there, where they take this idea of something and then really they're doing something else. I mean, a good example of that is the 60-year space program that never went anywhere because it really wasn't about that. It was about Cold War. It was about, the whole expansion of the military state. It had nothing to do with going into space other than, dominating it militarily, or we wouldn't even have built any of the stuff that they were showing the public.
Yeah, some of these movies, that movie Geostorm, not a very good movie. There were a couple action scenes in it of destruction, which I'm always a fan of that big like destruction stuff on Earth. But the Geostorm, the way those satellites in orbit were actually physically connected together to make a physical cage around the Earth, versus in our mind, what they're trying to sell us is they're all independently floating and orbiting up there. Now, so what if SpaceX puts all these data centers in space, they're going to have radio signal between them uninterrupted and then beam down to the planet? Or is there something else going on, that what we're being shown in popular movies is really the truth? I mean, you tell me, are we going to create an actual literal physical grid where those data center boxes that are going to be floating in orbit, are those all going to actually be physically connected into larger and larger and larger Lego pieces?
Absolutely.
And eventually you're going to get something that's, an eighth of the size of the Earth, or, with the solar panels up there blocking. So it'll be a continuous eclipse going around the planet every single day as this thing rotates. Like you can see the International Space Agency move around the planet every hour and a half, like where it's going to be. Imagine if something was a 16th of the size of the planet in orbit with solar panels blocking a 16th of that, and you would know where it would move around every day, and you could watch the eclipse come and go.
Well, they're trying to sell an app right now where you could push a button and it reflects sunlight to you in the night side. They're trying to set up cities that have reflective sunlight on them all night, so that they can continue to do stuff. So we're moving out there, and it's kind of like I'm going to give Greg Allison a little credit here. He has what he calls the dark fortress theory, not the dark forest, but fortress, which is that aliens, and probably humans, if we really wanted to occupy space, we're not going to be putting up, willy-nilly space stations floating in space. We're going to be digging out and putting technology into rock to protect it. So we're going to be doing, basically the idea that everybody was worried about with the Oumuamua and Atlas is that, it was some kind of asteroid or structure that had technology in it. But that's exactly what we're about to do. So when we're talking about in the near future going to war in space and knocking out satellites, making junk trails that destroy all of the other satellites, we know that just probably one explosion strategically placed in orbit, in the orbit of the satellites that we use for utility, for telephone communications, for internet and other things, even government, relaying of information, they can all be knocked out literally within a period of probably 24 to 36 hours from a domino effect of trashing a whole layer of orbit with space debris. Now, if you push it back out a little bit, or maybe one of our missions pull in a rock, or maybe, there's a rock trailing Earth on the same orbit. It's been there forever. That's a real mystery no one talks about. Say you had, I don't know, a big data center there with a bunch of spy equipment that was totally watching Earth, trailing it nonstop. You could do exactly what you're talking about. It's a cage, invisible bars around the planet. And that's what they're trying to do. The ones down on the ground, they're not really, I don't think, for computing power. It's exactly what you said. Tracking and tracing And whenever the population starts getting reduced, it'll be easier for them to use these things and all the flock cameras. And you're talking about those investments in Africa and how you could get everybody together and do something. That ain't going to happen until there's flock cameras on every corner there too.
Yeah, and we'll continue with the tokenization aspect, because these data centers are not just about tracking and tracing you and running a flock camera. They're about the tokenization of all assets on the planet in a digitized format of literally everything on the planet, all the way down to my remote control here, because there's value in that with the plastic and the component parts that could be recycled. So this will go on the blockchain as well as a digitized item, but you're going to have to run that in real time. So that's really more what the data centers are about. They're feeding you one thing and reasoning. But anyway, we'll talk about that when we come back on the break. Thank you for joining us. Head over to civilizationcycle.com. Throw your email in. We'll get you the show notes for today, what we're talking about, 10 different bullet points, and also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/civilizationcycle. If you like some of the ideas we're chatting about tonight, we'll get over there, read out some of the comments, and we'll see you right back here after the short break. Hey everyone, are you ready to grow your own fresh, delicious vegetables, herbs, and flowers this season? If you're looking for the highest quality heirloom and organic seeds, I've got the perfect company for you, True Leaf Market. They've been a trusted seed company since 1974, offering 3,000 types of non-GMO varieties, everything from classic heirloom tomatoes and peppers to rare herbs, microgreens, sprouting seeds, and beautiful flowers. All those seeds are open pollinated, pure, and perfect for home gardeners or anyone wanting healthy, flavorful produce without chemicals. What I love the most is their huge selection, fast shipping guarantees, plus options for bulk if you're going big. If you're excited to start your garden this year with real, authentic heirloom and organic seeds, click the link in the description box below to check out trueleafmarket.com. You won't regret it. Happy planting, and thank you for supporting the channel and this broadcast. Product you love, the 72-hour emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Not only emergency food, but camping food, and you can prepare that through the week as well. 20 delicious just add water meals. Think about creamy mac and cheese, hearty chili, sweet oatmeal. 2,000 calories a day. You need the calories. You're going to need to think and move. And the mashed potatoes, easier to make than oats, and you can add your own flavors. Goes with anything. For less than a couple of takeout meals at a fast food restaurant, get real peace of mind. And a real question to ask, how long could your family eat without leaving home? My Patriot Supply, click on that link in the description box below. It helps the channel. Truth is hard to say and hard to hear. Most people choose silence. We choose to speak. Your support of our sponsor keeps the Civilization Cycle podcast on air and giving us the courage to keep digging. That link's in the description box below. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. You know, we're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, If you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Welcome back to the second hour of Civilization Cycle. We'll get right back on it. Here he comes. I hear him. Check out the chat. You got to give up. Yeah. And you're back.
Ransom, that was some deep rumbling thunder out there. Boom.
Uh-oh.
Did you hear that in the background?
Nah, we missed
No, we were on break, so you couldn't hear that. All right, welcome back, everybody. Just before the break, I was talking about tokenization. Like, it seems that a lot of these data centers are not for what you think they are. Yes, in part they are, but you got to think with all that like digital credit score and track and trace and everything China does, they're doing it with about, let's just round it up and say 500 data centers. And that's for China's behemoth track and trace camera, 1,000 million billion credit scores, instantaneous camera and everything to track everything in real time, everything. That's China, 500. We're going to build 3,500 just in America. All right, so that tells me that we're still trying to retain and control something far greater than just knowing where you're driving your car, what you're posting on social media. It's really about the tokenization and digitization of all things on the planet in real time. And that would include natural forests, fisheries, as well as stocks and bonds and the price movements of everything as it moves down. Your wages, everything will have a tokenized value on it. This glass here, whatever, with my banana smoothie in it, that'll have a value too. Like there'll be nothing on this planet that won't have value associated with it, because that way they can create an entirely new money supply backed by something physical. Now, this SpaceX IPO validates that we have gotten just one gigantic step closer to this rollout of the system of the tokenization, because I think it's in 3 days, the DTCC, which is the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation in America that runs pretty much all stocks, bonds, anything, is going live with their testing of all tokenized securities. Anything in Wall Street that you can find in Wall Street, or anything that you saw in Yahoo Finance, stocks, bonds, ETFs, 401ks, retirement trusts, anything like this, is all going to be tokenized through the DTCC, running and using stellar lumens. Even just the very announcement that they might partner drove stellar lumens from like 8 cents to 25 cents in a couple days. They're not even using it yet. Because the thing is, every time that let's say you're an issuer of a stock, when you want to issue the stock, you're going to have to lock up 25 XRP tokens to create an individual contract for that stock. And then you're going to put it out. So right now, what are there, like 30,000 different offerings out on Wall Street, including ETFs and all these things? So each one of those are going to have 25 XRP locked in there indefinitely, as long as you're going to issue something on that. So the utilization's real for it, and the fees will be paid using Stellar. And the reason they like Stellar, because it settles pretty much instantly, and there's no carryover on that. And I will say another thing for the XRP Army lovers out there. You got to take a breath of reality here for a second. If I am a company or a country and I'm going to move, let's say, $500 billion, am I going to put it into XRP tokens that can move in price over the 5 minutes or 10 minutes until I get, or an hour or however long it takes? Or am I just going to lock that in RLUSD, where it's a stablecoin token on the Ripple network, where nothing will lose value? It'll still be $1 when it arrives at my destination. So these people that think they're all going to run on XRP, no, these massive transactions are going to be on RLUSD, the stable coin issued by the Ripple and used in the Ripple network and on-demand liquidity ecosystem. You got to be insane if you think these companies are going to try to take that risk on turning it into XRP, trading on an open market, which should go up or down, and then they're going to try to move that much. No, nobody's going to do that. They're all going to be using these things that remain stable. Now the settlement, the XRP, or excuse me, the stellar lumens, That is going to be for the payment of most things. That'll be wrapped into their stable tokens or their contracts, which these tokens, one for one, the banks are issuing their own one-to-one dollar, like a JP Morgan dollar. That transaction between the houses running on the fees will be Stellar Lumens. They're not going to convert it into Stellar and move it over. That's the whole reason all this legislation is coming up with the Clarity Act about stable coins specifically. Because when these companies want to move hundreds of billions, they're going to put it into a stable coin of whatever issuance from a government, a company, a city, or whatever, and then they're going to move it. They're never in their right mind going to turn it into a token that's traded on the open market and then move it and then hope they get the same value out of it on the other side. That's insanity to think they would do a thing like that. These tokens will be used for fees and that sort of thing. I agree. But that's the whole, and then we got Elon blowing all this stuff up into space right now where these data centers now are going to reside above us. So this is just the next step to know that this tokenization aspect is moving. I wonder how long it'll take them to get all the data centers up and functional in orbit. And when they do, how long before, because the DTCC is going live along with the Bank for International Settlements, and all central banks on the planet are going live in October of this year. They're starting the testing right now. I think it's 15th. You have to see if that, check out if that's the right date or if they push it back. But last time I saw that was the start date for America. And they have all these regional hubs. And America, is, for example, is its own one region, and then that will feed into then the Bank for International Settlements, and they have their own token layers. So nothing's going to be running on what you consider cryptocurrency. It's all going to be tokenized accounts on stable coins. That's the reason they need the Clarity Act. So with Elon launching that up, I think the Clarity Act's coming out pretty quick to be solidified and done with, because I think these two are marching hand in hand together. They need to have a place to store the data, but they need the laws to be able to enable the data to be able to store it somewhere. Like you can't have both. And I see that comment there. Can they tokenize your property if you own it? That is an unknown. And I saw something about trusts earlier as well. These are unknowns. This is what they're trying to get in this Clarity Act, because you as an individual are still a citizen of a country. You really own nothing. Unless you can get the original deed to that property back in the early 1800s. You still pay property tax. You are a renter. You're listed as a renter on your property. Even though you own it full out, you are still a vassal of the state, including the United States. You never own anything unless you can get the original property deed issued back. Like I say, most of these property deeds were, say, 1790s to early 1830s. If you can trace it back and get that original deed, that's outside of this system and it can't be included. That's all I know about that. It's still a value. And yeah, I was on that myself here for the buymeacoffee.com. Okay, so Catherine Barlow. Hey guys, if you put your stuff in a trust, can you protect your property? Currently, yes, they won't know who you are, so you're not an individual. They would have to go through the trust to get your assets, because it's not your name, it's the trust's name. So the lowest hanging fruit is going to be all you individuals out there, like just stuff in your name, like your house is in your name. That's what they're going to tokenize first, because you're a vassal of the state. The entities are considered entities because they have their own set of laws. So LLCs, trusts, this sort of thing are one level above you, just like owning something under your name. So that gives a layer of protection, but I don't know exactly if that's going to be with the tokenized aspect of things. But I know for sure, because we were going to do some stuff with our properties. So we were looking into it, because if there were going to be litigation and somebody was going to try to sue us, they would have to come up with a trust, and the trust has way more legal protections. So if you have a trust inside an LLC, or the LLC is inside the trust, and they have to go through 2 layers of corporateness, for a better term, before they can even come to you. And then they're suing a company. They're not suing an individual. And unless it's like millions and millions and millions they can get, no lawyer in their right mind is ever going to touch it, because it's just too much trouble to like break through those layers and pierce that corporate veil. They ain't going to do it. Not going to do it at all. And
yeah,
someone, thank you so much. And yeah, go ahead, Ransom.
I was going to say I agree with that. Right now, if you put stuff in a trust, you're putting it in the hands of esquires, lawyers, uh, and it is relatively safe. Matter of fact, I just recently my grandmother passed away, and she had a trust that protected all her stuff. And as far as I can tell, everything went to who it was supposed to go to. The only downside of it is that if there are any stocks, bonds, or tradables, property, things like that, you are going to have to pay a capital gains tax on those things. I mean, like from the other end, if you receive it. So if you're putting your stuff in a trust, realize that whoever gets it will have to pay taxes on whatever you give them.
Yeah, now there was the gift, as well. You're able to gift out that too. So if you're really at the end of your life and you're going to pass assets down to the next generation, you can give them gifts every year. And you'd have to consult with somebody on the amount of the gift, whether that's tax free. But yeah, like I say, the only thing certain is death and taxes, right?
Right. Here's another one. It says, will someone please tell me how a planet with 2/3 water has water problems, and how is it that we can't make rockets and airplanes, but we cannot desolate? We can desalinate seawater. I mean, there's programs all over the place. Matter of fact, the town I live in, the water that we use is both recycled and desalinated from underground sources. I think it's all a scam. It's that they know that you think that there's environmental problems in the areas that they're putting it, but just like that guy was saying a while back, these billionaire um, people that own these real estate companies are not going to be given loans to buy these million and more dollar properties all along the coastline if the banks and the loaners really thought that the globe was warming and it was going to flood all those areas. They know it's not. So they put a lot of money in predicting the future. Matter of fact, Dubai was kind of in that business with the coffee thing, in an arena where they want to know the future of weather patterns to determine investment outcome. And I guarantee you that all the people that are behind the data centers have done exactly that. And the areas that they're putting them in, there's good reasons that they're putting them in there, whether it's remote location, access to water, or the simple fact that it looks like in the near future, these companies will be able to generate their own power, whether nuclear or other. Let's put that out there.
Yeah, and again, with that water, you'd think we'd have already developed magnetic motors if they're working on weightless propulsion already and electrogravitics. I mean, that's the easiest low-hanging fruit off that is the electrical discharge from that very process. That's why in the early days, the 1950s, there were a lot of reports of what we'll consider lightning or some sort of lightning strikes coming off the bottom of the UFOs. That was because they were overproducing. They had no way to dissipate that like they do now with the frontal plasma layer, to like flow that electricity in to help get that layer even more wide from the actual material in front of it. Like we're going through atoms and molecules, right? But that plasma sheath in front literally leaves an empty space. That's how they can go and turn, and there's nothing in front literally for them to push through because there's nothing there.
Right.
But that originally in the 1940s and 50s, when they were working on some of this stuff that they found in Germany, the electrical discharge coming off the bottom was one of the things that was cited again and again and again. Well, that just shows you that this electrogravitics has a whole electrical aspect to it. So that the biggest concern that they always talk about is with desalinization is what? Electricity. And they're right there. You don't even have to worry about the electricity because we haven't since the 1940s. But again, you got to take it back to the 1940s when the world was being reestablished. What was the benefit to keep that away from people and continue to roll the world out the way it's been rolled out since the 40s compared to?
Well, I have
out at that time that were already there.
I have a good idea how they're rolling out this. And seemingly these articles don't have anything to do with each other, but in my crazy mind they do. So here's an article about scathing class action lawsuit accuses Washington Post of surveillance pricing, covert data harvesting. So just in the title there, that company was giving different people different prices based on who they were and stealing all their metadata. Why are they stealing all their metadata? Well, that goes back to this, the data centers. that has to go somewhere. Not only that, they have all of these other programs running that take massive amounts of data in space. And I'm serious when I'm telling you, we're about to see low Earth orbit warfare. So technically, that would be like a proxy warfare. Because they don't have to get so serious on the ground, and they can spend weeks or months investigating, saying maybe it was a malfunction, maybe it was a purposeful attack, kind of like they do with like today they had a big old scare at the Pentagon from some kind of chemical detection, and they brought out the hazmats, they locked everybody down. I'm pretty sure it turned out to be nothing. But the data centers, right? Inflation skyrocketing, food costs so much. There's no places to live in the Western world. From Europe to the Americas, we have housing problems, right? And seemingly people don't understand that whenever you add millions and millions of people, hey, it's kind of hard to find a house now, and that might add to that. But really, here it is. This is what it is. The UK defense minister quit, says Stammer's not spending enough to keep your country safe. And then you have stuff like this going on. We don't need to get into that, but that's going to be spreading all around Europe. And by the way, recently an imam said, there's 50 million Muslims in Europe. It's time that we take it. So there's an open call for a type of civil war between different groups of immigrants and the locals. And then this is kind of smack dab where it's at, where it goes.
Well, Ransom, what would that deflect from then? Signals on. That obviously there's higher, puppet strings pushing both of those. Okay, so game on. What's it deflecting from?
That's just going to be in my opinion. It's inevitable to happen anyways, but it won't happen until you see the other factions of the world go to war. So then they'll know that that's it's going to be a new conglomerate of a country, just like the original plan. They wanted a single country, whether you go back to the Germans or right afterwards. And they ended up making this thing called a euro. It didn't work. Actually, it did work. Each country at the beginning was producing products that were from their country and trading with the other countries, including the US and others. And it actually was working really good at first. But then, they cut back on energy, make regulations about making food products, all of these green programs, and then on top of that, ship in 50 million additional people to areas that don't share your culture, don't share your history, don't share your future imagination for the future and what kind of society you're going to have. And then, it gets basically, it all focuses in right here on these data centers with total surveillance over health services, over security, over your money, everything. So they're talking about hands off. Anti-Palantir protests break out in the UK over a deal with National Health Service. They might not be able to afford to keep you safe, but they're going to, don't worry, they're going to outlet those and outsource those programs of spying to these companies so that, when the local populations are mad about whatever they're doing, they can, compartmentalize and say it ain't our fault. It's this company. It's that contract. And they were already doing that with stuff in the UK already. And that's what, that's why they were trying to do the Brexit movement in the first place, is so they could get out of all these arrangements and agreements to, for the carbon reduction, for the migrants, for the energy reduction, for the population reduction. You can go on and on.
And let me throw something in there. Like, what do you think the 50 million people are doing for rent and home ownership over there?
About 75% of it are getting paid by the locals via tax money.
Yeah, but they need a house to put them. So, I mean,
they were throwing people out
for the locals.
Well, we went through that whole stage probably about 2010 to 2020, where they were literally throwing people out, closing businesses, closing hotels, or, renting them, whatever the case may be. And they've been doing this for a while. They were moving people out. Like, you would have a town of 1,500. They would move 2,000 migrants to that town, completely offsetting any, ecological balance, if you will, going on there. So they've done this on purpose, and it seems like a cut and dry case of divide and conquer. You move in an enemy, and you were mentioning Kosovo and stuff like that. That was the same exact program going on there, where you move people that are different from the local people. That way you can fractionalize and balkanize everyone to where there's no, nationality, a national movement to protect national interest in the people in those countries. that's all eroded away. And then you get stuff like this. What do you get whenever you get all of these new systems of spying? Where does that information go? Well, we're going through the death pains of free societies right now, the death throw, as they call it, while they implement all of this stuff. And it started on 9/11. We started with the the metal detectors, the TSA, and all that stuff over here. But the same mirror programs were going on in Europe, and now we're getting to the point where we're going to put in the real technology, the real biometric stuff. And it may be causing delays now, but they're going to streamline this to where they know, like, say you fly to Ireland, Ireland's going to know that you got on the plane. Ireland's going to know that you were flying on the plane and whether you were unruly or not unruly. They're going to know all of that stuff. So when you land, then you might get arrested for something you did, or, things like that. They're going to know exactly where every person is at all times. And then there's going to be the outliers.
Hey, wait, Ransom, wait a second. Then you get arrested for putting a post on through the free Wi-Fi in the airplane because it was under a jurisdiction of a different nation and you violated their, and whatever, for saying something. And just for an FYI for people, that little tiny circle that you can see sometimes in your screen when you're on an international flight, or sometimes depending on how long haul flight, you can't, the movie screen in front of you, there's a little circle there sometimes. Airlines got in trouble for harvesting you. They recorded you in real time for the entire flight to see where eye movements are, how much you slept, if you watch the advertisements, how much you drank, what did you eat, what didn't you eat, to try to adjust menu choices. Like, the airlines got raked over the coals for that, and you didn't hear much about it because they didn't want you to know that they were spying and recording you for the entire flight, picking your nose or whatever you're doing through that little hole in the camera. That's why I would always bring and put a piece of tape over it, still do when I'm flying, if I see it, but they've removed those since. Just saying, like, it's happening everywhere. And where's all that data being stored? Because another thing for traveling, the e-visa program for Indonesia got hacked, and they had 16 million passports, photos, phone numbers, email addresses. For all the foreigners that wanted to get the e-visa in Indonesia, all that information got hacked. And that's a government responsible for that. That's all on the dark web now. Great.
Well, that data, it's not only going for what you're talking about, tokenization, and it is going to track and trace everyone, but in my mind, the main goal is management of everything. It's not, like, all of those are little programs within the entire program. The whole thing is a super management system to manage the entire planet. And they're wanting to build these things like artificial general engineers, replacing, all kinds of people out of everything. We're talking about AI literally now being given the reins to design the future for us. And we're building the necessary infrastructure for that to happen. So that has to be the plan. I mean, right there, man. That's it. We now have countries, including Saudi Arabia. You remember famously gave rights to what's her name? Sophia, I think. I think that's her name. Anyway, the AI android robot that was, the most realistic one, the smartest one. They kept updating it and updating it. That has citizenship and rights, like the movie. What was that? Johnny Five there. I forgot the name of the movie. Short Circuit. Where at the end of that movie, which is an old 80s movie, the first robotic citizen was given citizenship, and they made him all gold plated and he was a robot. But that actually really happened. So that was a prediction of something that would happen. And now you have more and more countries that are starting to recognize this. Now, they preemptively set this up whenever they gave corporations the rights of humans, right? So if you have a corporation that's a person, an entity, and now it's ran by a non-human, an AI, a different kind of entity, that AI necessarily already has those rights. And they're going to expand those rights until your rights disappear and the AI system is completely unregulated as far as controlling it, but completely regulated as far as controlling you.
Yeah, and that's where we get into the the ownership of your actual physical identity. Because looking through YouTube, just for I do some YouTube stuff, and Ransom does too. There's a complete purge going on YouTube right now, and it's based on the largest content creators don't want their style and imagery used and replicated by AI and then put out at a much cheaper version. So now AI is actually concerned, or YouTube's concerned with the actual ownership of not only your face and your identity, but the style at which you create content. Because their largest A-lister creators, like somebody had done a Mr. Beast video with a different person. It was identical with all like the hoopla and the ha and all this and the extra hosts and all the games, and all those people were digitized. There were no real people. It was completely digital, completely AI from start to finish, and you couldn't tell that it was not real. So Mr. Beast sued these people saying, you can't use our style and the methodologies and the quirkiness that we have and just take our methods and copy paste it in the way that we do first step A, first step B to keep people teased on the hook and bring them back in. If YouTube's worried about your AI, not just that, see, this goes way beyond just your face. This goes so deep into how you as a human process information, how you as a human put information together to create a story, and the methodology at which you use your mind to use those complex decisions to create something is what they're trying to protect now. So if we're at that level where just YouTube is out there trying to protect their A-list creators from others using AI that is so cheap now to be able to create content that will keep you captivated and bring millions of subscribers onto a channel in weeks or months, then what else is going on out in the world that's not being regulated? At some point, the reason that you're going to have to identify yourself as a human is because the technology is getting so good and already right now that they can create entire movies, video platforms, video series, game shows, etc. Not a single live person exists in there, and you would never know the difference. So
that's true.
Yeah, well, there's a purge. So anything AI content, you're going to watch anything that you ever watched on AI on YouTube is gone, pretty much. They're scraping the entire platform. They removed 140 million videos just yesterday, and something like 40,000 channels got banged on yesterday, and they're doing this every single day for like the next 2 months. They're hoping to wipe out something like 60 or 70 million videos in the first month here of AI, and a couple 100,000 channels that are doing AI renderings and like using, those stories where it'll be a story, but it'll be generated by AI, and it'll have just some AI generated pictures in there as the story goes along. Like all those story channels are gone. All those revenge story channels gone. Anything that talks about events in the past of people or documentaries or something, gone. YouTube's removing everything, so it's going to be, just for an FYI out there, YouTube is trying to bring it back so it's only human created content on the platform, because they see that that's going to be a niche in the future, is human only created content. And that will be the platform to go to on the planet to see humans make stuff. Like we're in a damn zoo. This is exactly what's happening. So again, going somewhere, but I forgot my train of thought. But yeah.
Well, you were really talking about the way that they can control stuff now, and I was going to bring this back up because with the movies, I've been paying attention for a long time. So first, basically, came around the science of colors. Whenever they first introduced color, the Technicolor.
Color psychology, yeah, that's a popular one.
Right. So after the colors, they started working on flicker rates, right? And then after that, they started working on certain tones and sounds that cause emotion. And to get a good idea of that, just fast forward to one of the recent Disney movies. So now it's a digital production with all the right colors, all the right tones. The music chimes in at just the right time. You have flicker rate, hidden images, subliminal messages, all of this on top of what now, and I've kind of gave it a break for a while because I think people were starting to think I was crazy, but people don't realize how far technology has come as far as manipulating the human being. Now, before, I've talked about magnetic waves and Wi-Fi waves and different things that are in real studies that demonstrate that they can control behaviors in animals. And not only that, they can literally change one gene in an animal to change an entire behavior, whether this is from an exterior source or from genetic tampering from an internal, mechanism. But on top of that, you have a thing called Li-Fi, right? So Li-Fi is basically the internet that people don't realize has been happening for the last 10 years. So this isn't your coaxial hookup. This isn't your satellite feed. This is a internet that exists within all of the LED bulbs, televisions, screens, and other things that are pumping out flicker rates, and they're pumping out colors and all of these other things to either agitate you or make you want to buy or make you hungry or all of these other things. There's like tons and tons of documentation on that. Now we're all the way to the point. What if I could just get you as a worker to skip sleep and just go back to work, making your brain think that, well, it already slept. And the way that I could do that is by signaling your brain with a specific kind of Li-Fi. They don't use the word Li-Fi in this article, but it's essentially the same thing because you're going to need programs, algorithms to run this type of technology. So what they're talking about is literally no sleep, no problem. Awake mice given fake sleep signals, passed the memory test. They thought they slept. And so basically what they're using is light controlled tools to trigger the brain's deep sleep firing patterns in awake moving mice, and some sleep's core benefits followed. What this tells me is, obviously more than what they're saying, because I can't help look into, the ramifications of what someone's saying when they're saying, hey, I can make you hungry. I could make you sexually aroused. I could make you sleepy. I could make you exhausted, angry, upset. And, we had all the conspiracy theorists going crazy when they found out about ELF and, voice to skull technology. That's all child's play. Now we have a giant international internet system of light, sounds, flicker rates, and all of the God knows other components. And if you remember back in the days when we had the cable and everybody was like, hey, I think they put a camera in there, and that was a big conspiracy theory. And then decades later, we find out the little infrared receiver for changing the channel indeed was a reverse camera, and they were spying on what people were doing, just like you were talking about a minute ago. They wanted to know when you got up to pee, did you eat Doritos, all of those kind of things. And now it's to the point where they're actually looking at you in high def detail using microwave and other things to see exactly what you're doing. It penetrates the walls. They know about your safe if they wanted to. They know about the stuff you put in the wall. They know about that stuff if they wanted to. You can scan your house and find out pretty easily now. So we're at a point where people just don't realize the future we're in. Like the Matrix, they think they're in 1999 when we're really like 2100 as far as technology. So now they can manipulate you directly without you even knowing it, just from the lighting around.
You got to wonder if that works for healing the organs, because when you sleep, your body regenerates organs.
Absolutely.
So if you're getting fake sleep, then obviously the organ regeneration isn't happening. So there's going to be other wear and tear factors on it.
Yeah, and you just think about that. It seems like right about the same time that everybody got into the the frequencies to help them meditate and the right lighting. You get, there's several platforms out there that provide like healing light, blue light, red light, green light, things like that, mood lighting, and all these things. And if you notice, when you go to any of the stores to buy any kind of lighting now, there's connections, Wi-Fi connections to that light. You can change the light, you can change the dimness and all that stuff. And yeah, that's handy and that's neat and that's cool. But that same technology works in reverse. Other people can use it. Other entities, third-party people, they can spy on you through it. They know when you're home. And people were going nuts when you got a smart refrigerator, scanning the RFIDs on the products that go in there. Now they know how many times you get up to pee at night, how many times, you're eating a snack. They know the right time to send you the commercials. Matter of fact, the other day, and I know we talked about it, it's a joke, so I can't prove it, even though articles say they are doing it. We had a hair clog in our bathroom drain. And we talked about it, and I said, hey, well, you got to get that stuff that dissolves the hair to it's more than Drano. It's the kind that dissolves the hair. And I kid you not, I go and I turn on the TV and relax for the day, and guess what comes on immediately? This new product I've never seen before. It's supposed to be the best in the business. Will get rid of your clogs with just a little bit of trying, dissolves all the hair and scum right out the thing. It was perfect, exactly what I was looking for.
Damn, you are just the perfect consumer, Ransom.
and I can click on it now. Now my TV bugs me. Hey, do you want to put this in your Amazon shopping thing? Can we send a link to your phone? And I'm like, no. And sometimes I'm trying to turn it down and I accidentally, agree to it. And I'm like, damn, did I just order something? Or, it's really getting frustrating.
No,
That's
man,
the
you're on a subscription model now, baby. You can't, that's a year subscription model. We're going to send you 3 a month. You can't cancel.
Well, think about the tokenization from the other end. These companies that want to sell you things are buying percentages of time on streaming services, YouTube, whatever. They're doing the same thing in reverse, right? They're tokenizing the time that they get to advertise to you. So they pay for a specific thing, and I'm pretty sure that they are targeting you at specific times. Like if you went back to 1980 per se, and you were watching antenna TV, right about 5 o'clock, Burger King commercials, McDonald's commercials, and Taco Bell commercials would come on television. Why is that? Because they knew that the average American family ate about 6 o'clock in the evening, and 30 minutes is just enough time to convince whoever was about to start cooking, hey, you don't want to do that. We could go get a Whopper.
When they were meat whoppers. And can I tell you a little secret? I don't buy light bulbs from Home Depot or anywhere. I go to estate sales and I rummage through, and I always find the old bulbs before I don't have any LED lights in my house except the one in the hallway that came with it was a new fixture we put in, and the one in the bedroom, and that's it. Nothing else LED in the house. I don't want it. I go out of my way to scoop up the bulbs. I'll go in, and if there's a box of 50, I'll buy all 50. Different ranges of lumens, doesn't matter for me. It's a bulb from the past that doesn't have any track and trace on it. They work wonderfully. I do need to change them occasionally, but didn't we all when we were younger, remember? Click, click, boom, and it would scare you a little bit like, oh, the bulb went out. But otherwise, I routinely try to find as many light bulbs from the past as I can, because you literally can't buy them. And like if you try to go on like eBay or somewhere like that, they want like $5, $6, up to $10 for one bulb now. Of the old ones, the incandescent bulbs. Just go to an estate sale and gobble them all up, in different colors. So I'm a light bulb collector. Maybe I'm a freak. I got boxes of light bulbs laying around from the past because you just can't buy those types of bulbs anymore.
It's really messed up too, because
yeah, you're messed up, dude. You're great. You got green hair, green lips, looking good in the back. Is that how I can see Ransom through the wall with the Wi-Fi? Is that what you look like with your profile?
Absolutely. It would look just like that. And you know what? The crazy thing too is that what you were talking about the light bulbs, like you can't do that. There's no light bulbs left. Man, even the LED ones that are supposed to last 5 years, we have so many sonic booms, so much air traffic here, haboobs, thunder, severe thunder. I mean, it shakes your house. You can't go a year with the same light bulb here. I'm constantly buying new light bulbs because of that. And the power distribution is unstable here because they're adding all of these solar panel farms to people that supposedly that if you sign up, they'll make your bill cheaper. However, then you get these waves of electricity that short everything out, including the light bulbs and stuff. And people are wondering, well, why is everything always breaking in my house? Well, it's because you don't have a steady supply of electricity, for one. There's constant brownouts, and then on top of that, sonic booms and all of that other stuff. So you're kind of lucky to live in an area where older stuff still exists like that, because I don't think there would be a single iridescent bulb anywhere around here.
Yeah, and if I could talk about LED light bulb, dirty little secret. The lifetime rating on that, where it says 5 years, that's they turn it on once and they leave it on for 5 years. The continuous turning on and off of the bulbs is not what they tested for in the lifetime of that bulb. Like incandescent bulbs, they would say 50,000 times, right?
Yeah.
But LED, the rating on it is a continuous burn from the time they turn it on until the time it fails.
So they just want you to run that electricity, 24 hours a day to keep your light bulbs.
Yeah, but if you turn it on and off and on and off, that it creates extra excessive wear and tear that's not built into the testing parameters or the specs for the test. It's not. So there's been a lot of lawsuits about this and false advertising to say that you're saying 5 years, but you didn't turn it on and off 20,000 times when it failed at, the 3,000th time or something.
That's crazy. Maybe that's what it is. I'm going around trying to save light, so I'm destroying everything by turning it off all the time.
Well, if you leave it on, again, it's a continuous draw, vampire charge on that. Even though they're only running 20 watts, leave on 15 light bulbs at 20 watts or 10 light bulbs at 20 watts for a whole month and tell me how much they're going to cost you extra.
Is he wrestling in Mexico? What you talking about?
Who's wrestling in Mexico?
Me. They said, what's wrong with me? Oh, because of the lights. Yeah. Yes, I'm a luchador. Of course. No, I was just pointing out. I was going to point out.
You're going to be wrestling. I want your autograph, dude. You got to send me your autograph.
Right. Do you think this thing's going to hit 40 by 2027? Because I actually do. I think that's like what's going to happen here.
Well, the projections are this thing is going up to like 70 in the next 5 to 10 years. I have to give you the exact. They had a chart following this thing up, and it was going to be over 100 by 2050. So something's getting exponential here on this curve. And now our taxpayer to pay the interest off this thing is more than we actually bring in revenue. And then you have all the other liabilities of the Social Security and the Medicare. Liability. We're going to have to start cutting people's Medicare benefits like they've done across Europe to be able to pull back on some of this stuff. It hadn't happened to us yet.
Right.
It happened all across Europe routinely and other nations across the planet. People are going to be angry when it happens the first time in America.
I actually had this up that had nothing to do with our show tonight. I was explaining to my son that when he was born, he already had this, $100,000 debt. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, everybody, when you're born, already has a percentage of this national debt. They expect, in your lifetime, you're going to pay that off, but it'll just keep increasing and it'll never go away because of inflation, because of interest, because of the scam of what it is. And he was like, I don't understand. I said, it's even worse. Not only do you owe, upwards of $100,000 when you were born, but right now they're expecting you to pay off about 400,000 of it because you're one of the few workers.
But at the same time, with that birth certificate, they're issuing bonds against you also on the financial markets that are starting off with, let's say, that $100,000 figure, that's the base that everybody's building off of, and incremental interest off those, bonds that are issued against you through your lifetime earnings, because they anticipate you're going to earn more than $100,000 the whole time you're alive. If you live to be like 80, you're going to earn more than 100,000.
Right.
But it's almost like a gambling casino. Well, how much will David earn? How much will Ransom earn? How much will everybody earn?
Well, just I wanted to put it into perspective, like I told him, that's the reality of his time. That say someone's born right now, if you look over there, he already is if he's an able-bodied person, he's not born with any kind of issues, and is expected to work in his life eventually, he's already on the hook for 4 people's debt.
Yeah.
4 people, not just his.
355 debt per citizen 114, so you're already at like pushing over 400, almost going up to $500,000 per person right there anyway.
Right, so you for 3.5 people just because you were born as a beta. Betas are the smallest population coming, so this ratio is just going to increase with each generation that's born, right? So for the next after beta, it's going to go up, where when you're born, you're having to pay off 4 people that don't work's debt. And it works the same way when it comes to aid and assistance and things like that. So for every person that's out there with a job that's working, you got to realize you're paying for 3 or 4 additional people that are not paying in.
Yeah, because where it says in the green there, the federal tax revenue. So you need to look at that at $5 trillion. And then somewhere on the list there, you're going to find the interest payments that we're on our national debt on that $39 trillion. And those numbers don't match up.
Oh, and then you got the fraud clock now, added to this.
Oh, geez. 100 million billions. Yeah. 100,000 million billion. Oh, 711 billion on the fraud clock. Nice.
Yeah. So basically what's happening is if you're an average worker in any one of the first world countries, or even I would say some third world countries, I never hear of second world countries. Where is that? I never hear that. It's either first or third.
Those are the mid-development countries.
Well, just say you
Not
live in.
quite, not Singapore, because that's considered a first-tier country. Yet Indonesia would be considered one of those second tiers. Their economy is coming up. They have one of the highest economic growth in Asia. They're not quite there like you would consider Taiwan or South Korea or Japan or Singapore, but they're almost there.
But they still have a lot of workers. So it's like whether you live in first to third and you have a lot of workers, middle class, the establishment of the world, how everybody makes that joke that if all these countries owe money, who does the world owe money to? Well, it's these little groups of elites that set up the whole system. But it seems like they just decided we need to price everyone out of existence. This is the time. We got reducing fertility. We got declining population. We got world war imminent. We have category of, climate change. I'll put it that way, since that's their favorite term. That's a very real possibility of a magnetic field getting to a point that it causes real substantial problems on the planet. And all this just seems to be coalescing at the same time as they're trying to go for broke and make you broke. Just cost you out of existence. It seems like they want to put everybody back on a hunter-gatherer playing field. Whether you live in a first world or a third world country, you'll be essentially living in the same life. Like if you take away any resources that I have right here, essentially I'm living in a mud hut with a bunch of electronics. But if you turn off the electricity, I'm living no different than they are in Central Africa.
Or they were 5,000 years ago. It all comes back to it. The only reason any of us have this ability to live lives and have cleanliness and this sort of is because we have electricity and energy that's converted into things that can make life easier. I mean, I've been to many a country traveling. People still go collect water in buckets and bring that back. There's not running water. So think about how much time it would take you if you had to go collect firewood from a forest. So they deforested and it takes you 3 hours to go walk and get your wood. The water's 30 minutes because you can't carry the wood and the water at the same time. You got to take 2 trips. You're already like 5-6 hours into your day just to go get wood for the fire and water. That didn't leave anything for, laundry, repairing laundry, sewing things, cooking, maybe going to the store to buy something if you have a way to earn money to go get it. I mean,
no time for siestas.
You realize how easy we have it with the electricity and energy here. Without that, carrying capacities, 500 million's generous.
Well, I just wonder sometimes in 500 years, are they going to be looking at this the anthropologist of the time being like, we have no idea why they collapsed. It seemed like they had all the technology they needed. I mean, you point this out all the time. Power generation at this point in our civilization is a issue. It's a non-issue. We've already figured out the sun. We figured out petroleum. We figured out nuclear reactions. So there's literally no reason for anyone to suffer as far as not having power generation on the planet right now.
Yeah, and with the abundance of materials and interconnectivity in our supply chains, I'm just still baffled how people don't have running clean water. I mean, I know that the corruption in Africa with the World Bank giving them the loans is like at the highest, never been solved. Like if you could solve that one problem, if you could say, hey, Dave, what would you say to solve that? I would say in Africa, there'd have to be accountability for when these bank loans are issued on the sovereigns or when the government level, that those who take it at least have to spend it in the country. Because I was doing that African, I'm still doing on the African expose. Some of these leaders get like $4 or $5 billion from the World Bank, and they keep 4.999 billion of it. Uh-oh, camera's moving, puppy's moving camera here. They leave zero for the people. And then the World Bank doesn't care because the offset of that when they can't pay back their loans is they just come in and they take the resources. Like if that cycle of corruption could be broken, where the money that it was actually issued into a nation had to go into the nation for road building and water filtration and water works and these sort of things. Hell, these places don't even have roads after $200 billion rocks into a country or more, 500 billion, and they still don't even have a single or barely any roads except in the cities only. And it's just dirt tracks that wash away in the rainy season for the rest of the country. Like, how is that even possible with half a billion, $1 trillion going in over 30 years, 40 years that they don't even have roads there? Like,
Are you talking about New Mexico?
stop talking about Africa.
Yeah, I know, but that's the same issues we're having here. They're dumping trillions into the government, potholes in the street, homelessness up 55%, people dying of drugs everywhere that are supposedly being blocked now. There's supposed to be zero border traffic, but everybody's still dying of fentanyl. Can you explain that one? Well, it's because the trade routes are still open.
No, they always will be. I mean,
Actually,
the
working
Cowboys
on
are always going to run it. I mean, there's money there.
Right. Actually, I'm talking to several people that are in the know along the border. And from what I'm being told, there's a major push to reestablish power in the United States from the cartels. And it's being met with almost zero resistance from the Mexican government. And from what I'm being told, there's a little bit of holding back on the U.S. side as well. So it's almost like they're trying to set up the situation that they scared everybody about. And when they started actually shutting down the border, it really closed off and they saw an impact and they realized, hey, we got to let a little bit of flow come back.
Well, I saw that Claudia Sheinbaum didn't want to go to the World Cup games and matches in Mexico because she would be booed so heavily that it would give a bad image for Mexico, that she won't attend any World Cup games.
Yeah, and they're having complete mayhem going on.
And they're super crazier than we are. Like, you go to Spain and some of these places that are Germany or whatever, super crazy football fans, like England, whatever, damn. And then Mexico, put that right in the same boat. Like, American, we're so timid at the matches. Like, you don't have any like feeling or anything here. There's like almost zero energy in a football match compared to most of the rest of the world. Imagine the boos that would be going on. They wouldn't be just like boo. They'd be throwing stuff and like all kind of off the hook,
Right. Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy what's going on. As far as I've been told, there's some guy died outside of it. There, people are mugging people, robbing people. The embarrassment of the fact that they had years to prepare for it and the roads are messed up, and they're doing this thing that's funny because they were showing me. So how when we fix potholes, they'll go and they'll do whatever they do to make it solid. So down there, they're just faking, covering it up with some stuff and then painting it so that it looks like the street's good while it's just filled in with like some dirt or something. Pothole's still there. And they had a long time to prepare for this. So it's like a lot of people are saying it's a big embarrassment that Sheinbaum is embarrassed. But it wasn't just Sheinbaum. It was the guy before him too. What's his name? Already forgot his name. The other communist guy.
The play actors come and go. I mean, the stage always stays the same, but exit stage left. Here comes a whole new crew that you'll forget the names in 5 years, and this agenda they push still continues.
Yeah, well, it's for the people. It's for the Pueblo. Don't worry about it.
It's for the Pueblo. Yes, it is. Oh, thank you for staying with us for the couple hours here. We could always go longer, but we're going to cut it. It is midnight Eastern Standard Time every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. Thanks for your comments. I've been reading them on the sidebars we're coming across here. Massive depopulation through food, water, electricity shortages. It's going to be far more than that. It's not going to be just those three. It's going to be, again, if the U.S. kicks off, look for the real pipelines that are delivering the relief energy out, like the Amal pipeline that delivers 5 million barrels to the Red Sea. That's going to get smashed to smithereens. And you'll watch what a true oil panic looks like. Because if it goes down, again, this will be in orders of magnitude on how do you disrupt an economy to reset and bring a new economy in. We have to break the old one and smash it and burn it to the ground before the phoenix can rise from the ashes. So check us out. civilizationcycle.com. Put your email in there, get you the show notes, 10 things we talked about with a little explanation, some images of relevant charts, and also buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. If you like this, type of content. And thank you so much for diving in with us this evening. Try to read those out for you, and everybody that's supporting you, thank you too for all the thank yous in the Buy Me a Coffee. And until next week, we will see you. Bye for now.